Thanks, Sam, and welcome, everyone. Today we're going to be talking about the industry change that we're seeing with the legalization, decriminalization, and introduction of dispensaries and retailers into the business environment and how to handle them, open accounts for them, not open accounts for them, and or whatever your financial institution's decision is going to be. But what's happening right now, and that's kind of what today's topic is about, is there's a big change, 23 states now with some form of medical marijuana statute, and certainly 2 states with retail statutes, and Oregon, I think, is pending, and we'll vote in November on that on the retail side. So certainly there's a lot going on right now, but that's state law. And so we also know there's federal law. There's the Controlled Substance Act and the fact that marijuana is still a Class 1 drug. And so recently what's been going on is that FinCEN has issued some guidance in light of the Cole Memorandum. And so as you sit here kind of in a conundrum of what to do, if anything, about these law changes in your particular states, you're going to have to delve, I think, pretty deeply into the state laws because they're quite different. When you sit down to build your CIP and your CDD, your worksheets, your business profiles, however you do that, what questions are you going to ask, which side of the fence are you going to go on, and how are you going to monitor these transactions to make sure that you don't end up in any kind of problem zone with banking someone who's actually doing something illegal and so does something that's legal. So it's a much bigger thing than I think all of us thought originally, and as we sit down, I remember when this sort of, when I sort of got, oh my, that oh my feeling, we've got to sit down and do something about this, was back in February when I was doing some training up in Washington State for one of the associations up there, and I thought, okay, this is something that's got to be addressed from the bank secrecy side of things, in particular, as we look at what we're going to do as far as customer ID programs and customer due diligence. There's certainly some thoughts about this feels a lot like money service business. I mean, that's my first thought. This feels a lot like when we started rolling out money service businesses. But one of the distinctions there, I think, for us was money service businesses were legal at the federal level and the state level. So what we had to work on was our federal registrations for money service businesses and our state variances there. Are we going to have a check cashing license? Are we going to have a money transmitter license? So some of the thought process and some of the questioning process feels similar. And the decision of, do you have enough staff to monitor these activities, and do you have enough staff to keep up with these licensing, a lot of that feels very similar to the money service business. So you certainly can, at least initially, big picture, think about it that way. And when you start delving into it to your particular state or states, then that's when you're going to see there's a lot of variation in the state laws out there, and how you design your questionnaires and your customer due diligence in particular is going to be important. So what you have received today, and it's enormous. I hope nobody printed it, but there was 2 handouts that went with your slides today. And one of them is clearly labeled State Supplement. So in there, up to the minute, we have, even including New York, which recently passed, all of the state laws, whether they're passed or pending, are in there. And every state's retail and medical marijuana in the cases of Colorado and Washington, where they're both. And you'll also see any information that's at the Attorney General's office per state. So that is the handout that you're going to live in when we finish our conversation today, because if you're in 12, 15 states, then certainly you're going to have to do some work because they're very, very, very different. And I'm going to show you a few states and some of those variances also that go through. So that's probably the most important thing that you got today. And then the second thing is also kind of a history of marijuana use and the legal situation about marijuana and where it came from being considered a poison in the 1900s, and then, as it came along, there was the Uniform State Narcotic Act, where it was considered a narcotic, and then there was a Marijuana Tax Act in 1937, and then as it goes along, it became a part, of the Controlled Substance Act in 1970. So, again, you can go back and kind of look at that history to see how it's moved along. I think some people that like to kid around about this, and I would kid around about it, but I think it's going to be too serious. But even George Washington, they say, was a grower, agriculture guy, of course, in Mount Vernon, and one of his crops was hemp in the beginning. And, of course, King James I had ordered every colonist to grow 100 plants specifically for export, and so that was one of the ones. So you can see that the changing laws and the changing look-see at what this is all going to be about is a very different environment today than it was in 1937, and certainly different than back to the pre-1850s and so forth. So when we begin through this, talking about what does this mean, especially since FinCEN is using the word marijuana-related businesses, what is that going to be? And what is a marijuana-related business as we look at this? So I want to talk just a minute about the industry, and it's certainly organized differently, in different states, and certainly we do see that some have dispensaries, and you'll see that in the state statute. Some don't have dispensaries. Some you are both the grower and the patient and the caregiver all the way through, and some you're not. But if you just kind of remember, and I think this is where I really started thinking about this, is really thinking out the fact that this is an ag business. I mean, it's an agriculture business. Something has to be grown. So our growers, whoever they are, whether they're the caregiver or the patient or the dispensary, or that the growers are separate as they are in some states, they're going to have seeds, they're going to have soil, they're going to have lighting, there's going to have to be places on land or in rooms where they're grown. So all of these supplies become, since they derive their income from marijuana sales indirectly, they become, in my mind at least, a marijuana-related business. Now, I would have a feeling that we're just at the tip of this iceberg. You know it, and I know it. We're going to see more come out on this, I would imagine, from FinCEN and our various agencies and our regulatory bodies. But when you start looking at this this is an agriculture business, and there are growers, there are producers, there are warehousers, there are sellers, there are dispensaries in the case of medical marijuana, then you start to just look on the internet and see there's seed companies. There could be ACHs coming in and out from seed companies, from the fertilizer businesses, all kinds of things that are directly related to these different products that will be grown. And again, not trying to titillate by just showing you some of these websites. That's not the idea here, but just to show you, don't just think dispensary and be done with it. I mean, you've got to really think bigger than that. If the income from the various businesses is coming from a marijuana sales, then it's a marijuana-related business in my mind. And again, maybe one of the things that you might do in your risk assessment of this and your analysis of this is define, picking up from this FinCEN guidance that we're going to look at, you might define what your financial institution is going to call a marijuana-related business, and that might help you just by using their stuff and maybe taking it a little further and write a good definition. Everything can flow from the definition if you take the time to write it. It's kind of like, UDAP and complaints. You got to write what a complaint was, and then you're held accountable to it. But, these folks that provide not the growing or the end product, but the fertilizers and all of the other paraphernalia that goes with this, you can kind of see. So